Hello, hello, and welcome to a very, very special episode of Drag Nights. Tonight I have Robert. Robert, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course.
Hey, what are we doing here? You filming again? Without me?
Maybe.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Weren't you off like auditioning for Pit Crew for like season 17 of Drag Race or some shit?
No, I wasn't doing that. I was auditioning for Scruff. It didn't work well.
Uh,
We had different interests. They wanted a fully bottom, only verse. So yeah, but I'll be more than happy to join. Oh God. Daytona wins. Brought to you by RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah, they definitely don't want no whistling bottom up there. Nope. On that note, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another special episode of Drag Nights. Tonight we're focusing on the mind, on the spirit, on the feels. We are here with our friend Robert, who's going to give us some insights on how to take care of our mental health. So with that being said, here is a very special episode of Drag Nights, the mental health special.
And yeah, so tonight's special is focused on mental health. I was recently out for one of the episodes, unfortunately, just to take care of myself. Thank you again, Tim, for covering me for that. But going back to mental health, Robert, give us your title and what specifically you deal with in your daily life.
Okay, so I am Robert. I'm one of the nurse practitioners here locally in San Antonio. I do have a specialty for psych mental health, which is one of the reasons why I'm on the show today. So thank you both for having me, of course. So what questions do you have for me?
Typically, what signs or behavior can one look out for if in the event that they suspect that they are suffering from mental health issues? There's like, what would one be looking out for just to kind of maybe consider that, oh, I might have issues that I need to look further into, rather than someone on a typical daily life who's just having a bad week, maybe.
Okay, well, it has a lot to do with the mood disorder itself. Obviously, we know the most common ones are like depression, anxiety. Depression is pretty straightforward, has pretty classic symptoms, Not everybody will present the same, but most of them is like lower energy, not wanting to get out of bed sometimes, excessive crying. For some people it can be more irritable, more agitated. And of course with anxiety, it's, that it can vary from something very mild to being like a full-blown panic attack. And it just varies from person to person. And of course, the more severe forms of these mood disorders would be like your bipolar disorder and your schizophrenia. So with bipolar disorder, we have several categories. So you have your type 1, your type 2, and your type 3. Type 1 basically incorporates more of a severe mania. So when you hear the word manic, or manic episode, you're thinking more of somebody who is basically on overdrive. They are very antsy. They tend to not be able to sit still. You'll notice it more so in their speech patterns. It's almost very pressured, like they have something that they need to say, and they are just constantly going from one topic to another. You can also incorporate a lot of maladaptive coping mechanisms like excessive drinking, excessive drug use, hypersexuality is also another common trait with that. So that's your type 1. Your type 2 kind of delves more into a less severe form of mania called hypomania. Now, that doesn't mean that this is any less severe, it just means that the depression tends to predominate more than the actual mania. So these individuals can still have manic episodes, but they tend to not be as life-threatening because some of the behaviors that type 1 individuals can partake in can be a lot more dangerous, okay? Now, there is something called cyclothymia, which is type 3. So this is the rarest type of bipolar disorder. These individuals tend to just fluctuate between, highs and lows more frequently. And they have something called rapid cycling, which means they go from happy, sad, and everywhere in between rather quickly. They tend to have a less traditional triggers and moods. It's a little bit more unpredictable, but all three of the bipolar disorders are usually well managed with medication and therapy. So in a nutshell, those would be the most common ones. Did you want me to go over more of schizophrenia? I can always go into that too.
Well, yeah, go ahead and give us a bit more detail into schizophrenia. For
Okay.
some of our viewers who more or less probably don't
Sure.
know.
So schizophrenia is probably the rarest of the mood disorders, and obviously tends to be the most severe. A lot of paranoid thinking tends to come about with schizophrenia. There also tends to be what are called auditory and visual hallucinations, so they see things, they hear things that aren't always there. Sometimes the voices that they hear can be very intrusive and very negative. So I know a lot of individuals who suffer from schizophrenia, have a very difficult time managing their mental health issues without proper medication, of course.
I want to talk a little bit about trauma.
Sure.
So I know trauma can come in a variety of scenarios.
Sure.
Bad relationships, to, life events, losing either a family member, like for example, it's like a car accident or
Sure.
what have you. With trauma, eventually, probably with some of those can come triggers. What are some ways you can say will be helpful to people to help manage their triggers?
Sure. I'm glad that you brought up triggers and trauma because that kind of delves into another kind of category within the psych mental health realm, and that's more of your personality disorders. Now, the best way to manage triggers is through self-awareness, and that takes time. That doesn't always happen right from the bat. A lot of individuals, unfortunately, are unaware of their behaviors. It usually takes someone in their close circle to kind of get them to realize that they're doing things that aren't healthy. So, in order to properly manage triggers, you do have to know what those triggers are to begin with. And it's difficult in the beginning, particularly if you are not aware of the way you react to things. Now, the best way, like I mentioned, is having a trusted individual or friend, a relative, significant other, someone you can just have a genuine conversation with. And it does take a lot of, self-critiquing, and sometimes we as humans don't want to talk about those type of things, but I do feel like in order to manage your triggers, you do have to know the reason why you react to them in the first place. So it's not always easy. Like I said, a lot of individuals tend to use maladaptive coping mechanisms, like I mentioned, the alcohol, the drug use, excessive sex, any way of bringing up that dopamine. It usually tends to be, the motivating factors for a lot of these people. Now, the purpose of today's show is primarily to destigmatize mental health and have an open and free space for us to talk about these more difficult topics.
I'm glad you said that because even here in the States or just among men in general, men are more prone to suicide. As men, we've just been told to bottle in our emotions and just never talk about it, and that can lead to, an unstable mentality of how to process your emotions.
I agree. And it's unfortunate that, particularly amongst our communities, men are usually kind of, I don't want to say groomed, but it is a form of grooming. You're expected to act a certain way, behave a certain way, and unfortunately, men are kind of taught that they can only show one of two emotions, whether it be happiness or anger. There's really no in between. And unfortunately, that has a lot of detrimental effects. Like you mentioned, a lot of it is internalized. And we're like balloons. We eventually get to a point where it just pops. And that's why you see so much violence coming out, because a lot of these individuals, they reach a point where they can no longer cope with their own issues, and because they're groomed in a sense to behave violently, it tends to manifest in, shootings, particularly hate crimes. There are many different ways that it can manifest. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It is unfortunate that there is this like toxic masculinity presence, particularly in our culture, and that's something that we're slowly changing, particularly in our own community, but I do feel like we need a long way to go.
Definitely.
Be more comfortable with, expressing our emotions and being okay with talking about these things.
And with that, I believe we're going to go to one of our first performers tonight. He is one of our lovely brothers. We bring to you Hudson Abaquir.
Love you.
No
Now, it's Hudson Abaquir, who my lovely brother has mentioned at one point or another to me as I voiced my issues myself, that guys, it's okay to not be okay. And this would bring us to one of my questions for you.
Sure.
Is life functional once diagnosed with a mental disorder? What are the likelihoods of that being accomplished? Because most people probably think, oh, I have something wrong with me, like I won't live a normal life.
Well, believe it or not, we all live dysfunctional lives up until we become more aware of our issues. So, to answer your question, yes, life gets a lot better once you are able to fully understand the way your mood disorder, personality disorder, or any type of mental illness manifests, because you are able to, like I mentioned earlier, you're more self-aware. And that's the key component into addressing your issues, alongside an expert who can help you manage your symptoms. You can go through talk therapy, which is also very beneficial. And of course, with some individuals, yes, medication can be, an option, particularly with the more severe mood disorders. The outlook is great, but unfortunately, we still live in this mentality that, mental illness is something that we don't talk about. And that is where it's more detrimental. Not so much getting the help, it's more so the individuals that refuse to address their own issues is where we notice more problems.
I know the workplace for a lot of people tends to be, I know it could take a toll on someone's mental health. So
It can be very stressful.
So advice-wise, if any, what are some good, healthy ways to kind of decompress at the end of the day?
So that basically just depends on the things that make you happy. I always recommend that you have at least 1 hour every day of you time, and that's basically just focusing on the thing that makes you the happiest. Regardless of what it is, you do need to give yourself some time to decompress, whether it's going to the gym, doing something that you love to do, something artistic, regardless of what it is. It's a good way of getting your mind off of that stressful stimuli. It's a way of getting back to a zen state of mind, because you're right, work can be very stressful. You just have to roll with the punches, unfortunately.
So I play Pokemon Go. What are your comments on that? It makes me zen and happy.
I say whatever works for you.
That brings up our next performer. She actually is a very good advocate of mental health. This would be the lovely winner of season 15. Spoiler. Sasha Colby.
Every time they turn the lights out, just wanna go It's been a while. I know I shouldn't have kept you waiting, but I'm here now.
That was Sasha Colby, everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed it. So, little fun fact. Sasha Colby, if you saw season 15 of Drag Race, if you didn't, here's your spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. So, during the talent show number, she did a performance to the Cranberries song Zombie. And she performed that song saying when she was growing up in Hawaii, she went through a lot of child abuse, especially from her mom. And she has this published in an article and everything. She suffered from a lot of child abuse from her mom, and sometimes she would actually lock herself in the room and she would just blast the Cranberries, and that was her escape, that was her zen. And she did mention that to this day she doesn't talk to some of her family members because it was toxic. It was a toxic environment. But with that, this brings me to my last question of the night. Cutting toxic people off can be a healing process.
Very much so. Yes. Unfortunately, we are our own worst enemies. We tend to perpetuate each other's mental health issues. And it's through that self-awareness that you're able to realize that certain people make you a worse version of yourself. And that's when you know they're not meant to be in your life. You know, not all of us are compatible with one another as much as we would love to be hunky-dory. You know, sometimes you do have to disassociate yourself from individuals, particularly if it's taking a severe toll on your mental health.
Would you say that the best way to at least notice if they're worth keeping around in your life is that they're actually contributing to your life in a positive feature rather than they're your best Judy and, you know, anytime you go out with them, yeah, it's a hoot and a blast, but normally like it involves drinks or alcohol. other substances to go ahead and get that effect, next to spending time with someone and either y'all just building each other up or just being around that individual that can help lift you up from a dark place.
Well, in terms of trying to keep that friendship, whether it be romantic or platonic, you have to basically ask yourself, is this individual being receptive to what I tell them? Are they wanting to change? Because we all have room for improvement. You know, none of us are going to be symptom free. None of us are going to be devoid of, you know, mental illness, because the day and age that we live in, it's a very stressful one. And it's all about wanting to improve upon yourself. So if your friend, lover, family member, if they are worth that and they show that they want some change, then that's when you're willing to put in that effort. But if these individuals do not change, and they've shown you time and time again that, you know, it's a cyclical pattern, then it's usually best just to remove them, because unfortunately you're getting dragged down with them in the process.
Thank you for coming out on our show and, you know, talking to us to, like, you know, help us better take care of ourselves and especially our mental health, because it really is an important topic, especially since, well, everyone actually has like their own things that they deal with. And of course it could be like damaging, or it could definitely take a toll on us. So it's always good to go out and get help. It's always good to talk about it, and definitely have a good circle of people, well-rounded people who could definitely help you in your time of need.
I wouldn't know what that is. I have no friends.
The door's over there.
Well,
Love you.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Fernando, for having me. I really do appreciate you guys having me on the show today.
Of course, anytime,
Spread some
babe.
awareness.
Well, thank you, of course, for your time, especially taking it out of your busy schedule, I'm sure, to be here with us in this time.
Thank you for having me.
So before we sign out for the evening, we have one more performance. This queen is very well known in San Antonio.
Who is it?
Lindsay Andrews. Enjoy.
I can't stay on your life support. There's a shortage in the switch. I
And that was Lindsay Andrews, everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed her performance. If you did, tip her, send her money, follow her on social media. Go check out all of the content that she has to offer. And also, I'll be posting Sasha Colby's article down in the description below this video in my YouTube page. And also at the end of this video, there's going to be some information for you guys to also get the help you need to help take care of yourselves too. With that being said, I'm Timothy Barragan.
Fernando Rios.
I'm Robert Trujillo.
And thank you guys for tuning in to the mental health special of Drag Nights. We'll see y'all in the next video. Mwah. Bye.